Boker Tov. On this glorious morning, we get ready to tackle another week full of blessings that will appear for us from the Almighty and challenges that we shall overcome. So New York Times columnist David Brooks writes this whole idea about the two mountains in people's lives. He says that, we're all born and we start climbing this mountain. We go to school, we study, we choose if we're going to be a lawyer, a doctor, if we're going to be a financial service person, a teacher. We try to find the love of our life, buy a home, build a family. And in this first stage, we're always focused on what people think about us, how they perceive us, etc., etc. And then something happens. Either we achieve all that and we don't find meaning in it and we don't find the deeper purpose, or heaven forbid, we go through a crisis, we lose our job, we fail at what we were doing best, we go through a terrible divorce, someone gets sick, heaven forbid cancer, and suddenly life takes us from the top of that mountain and throws us off into a valley. We get the shock of our life, or we don't, we're just searching for a new mountain. And that's when the second mountain comes in. It's a mountain that has more purpose, has more meaning. We want to fulfill things, not what others are going to think, but who we are. We want to grow in a greater spiritual way. In this past Shabbos, in the Torah portion of Tazria Mitzorah, that's exactly the message the Rebbe gave us in 1981 about a basic, important question. The name of the first portion is called Tazria, which means to conceive, to give birth. Yet, the portion primarily speaks about Mitzorah, about leprosy, which is a spiritual malady that afflicted our soul and by consequence came into the skin of our body. And someone who had leprosy had to be quarantined from the community for 7 days. Had to be in a space that was away from everyone, a time for introspection, to think about his soul, to think about who he was. But yet he was impure. So the question is, the Torah portion is called Tazria, which means to conceive, which means to give birth, yet it really speaks all about almost death, about seclusion, about impurity. And the question is why? And the Rebbe answers this idea that sometimes we think when a crisis hits us, when something challenging happens in our life, that we're suddenly dead, or that we're quarantined, that we're away from everything, that we're not growing, that we have a crisis. But what we don't realize is that crisis is really a new birth. The pain of having a child, of giving birth to a new idea, comes through struggle. It's falling off that first mountain, as David Brooks says, and suddenly landing in the valley and having the courage to find that second mountain, to find the meaning, the purpose in our life. You think about the Mona Lisa in the Louvre in Paris, the greatest painting in the world probably that exists today. When we went to Paris, Gurney and I had no interest in visiting that. In fact, I quipped that probably the only thing that Paris has left that's great is the Mona Lisa. But how did the Mona Lisa become famous? If you search it, yes, it was painted by the famous Leonardo da Vinci. It was a famous Mona Lisa, but there's nothing exceptional about the painting that made it unique, that made it different than all the other paintings, except one thing. When in 1911, an Italian guy who was working at the Louvre stole the painting because he wanted to make Italy great again, right? So he stole the painting. But what happened afterwards was remarkable. The Mona Lisa was on the front page of every paper in the whole world. The Louvre was closed for a week. But after that week, the next day, so many people came to see the empty spot where the Mona Lisa once was. And for 2 years, they searched for it. Remarkably, in those 2 years, when they were searching for the Mona Lisa and it wasn't there, more people came to visit the spot that lied empty where the Mona Lisa was than all the years before when the Mona Lisa was actually there. And then 2 years later, they caught the guy and it reappeared. And suddenly it had a new aura to it. It was the most amazing painting. Well, remarkably, the thing that the catalyst that allowed the Mona Lisa to become the greatest painting in the world was actually the biggest crisis when it was stolen. Same is true with our life. Sometimes when we fall off that highest cliff into the valley, it's only that we're able to grow even higher. That's why the portion is called Tazria, to conceive. Because every time we feel like a leper, we feel spiritually detached. We feel emotionally detached. We feel in a moment of crisis, it's really an opportunity that God's sending us to conceive a new identity, something greater, something more meaningful, something with greater purpose. Do I have to translate that to the past year we had? We all felt like quarantined, like lepers in a certain way. God was sending us a message. But that message was a message of conceiving, of Tazria. He was implanting within us to be better, to grow greater, to have more purpose and meaning in our life, to teach our kid better values, not to leave shul, but to come more often to shul, to connect, to study, to celebrate Shabbos. Tazria, every crisis is to conceive. The Mona Lisa only became great after it was stolen. And sometimes our greatest mountain is the second mountain we climb, or maybe the third, the fourth, and the fifth. God bless you. Go climb the mountain in your life. Have a good day.